DJ Crypto with a longtime friend, and it's been a while, but Obi-Wan is joining us back.
Okay.
Thanks for
What's
hopping
up?
on.
Yeah. Sorry if I'm
Oh,
a little
just
hot. It's
living the
cooking up
life.
here with the AC.
Hopefully, we can move forward with some Voyager stuff we hear today, and that is why uh, a nice little beverage shot there. Um, there you go. Now you know what he likes. Um, All right, so today we got some news from the Voyager UCC, and then we've got the Twitter accounts that have been following all the documents. Are starting to share some things. I think you're going to pull up ETH Daddy's Twitter possibly to kind of show what he highlighted. And but kind of in summary, where we're at today is we're looking at the Voyager UCC comes out and lets us know, hey, the UCC and the court, or the government, I should say, have come to an agreement. They've been fighting over it for the last few weeks about this exculpation clause. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And basically, what we're hearing is that they've come to some agreement that says, okay, we're going to put that aside. Not that we're letting it go, but we're going to put it aside, which we had some people saying to begin with, like, why do you have to include it? Just put it on the side. Let us move forward. And they say, okay, we're going to send it back. We're going to try to move forward. We're going to get Binance back in here and have them moving forward. And let's see where we're at and let's see where we're going. Is that kind of a good summary, or what else you got?
Yeah, that's a really good summary. The exculpation clause is really kind of what was hanging things up. The Department of Justice said, hey, we're okay with you distributing assets a month ago. We just don't like this language that was added in really late. I have to give a shout out to Spock, the hero Spock, which is Gina on Duresti and ETH Daddy, because they have been spending a ton of hours giving us information, looking behind the scenes, working with some lawyers and trying to like give us some information that we wouldn't otherwise have, and until the UCC tweets out every once in a while. So props to them. A lot of the facts and information coming from them that we're going to share. So just wanted to shout that out. But yeah, so going back, DOJ said, hey, the main issue is this exculpation clause. We don't agree that we should be hampered in our ability to enforce the law if any laws are indeed broken. Exculpation clauses are something that are typically done in bankruptcy case, and they didn't have any objections to the FTX US exculpation clauses or anything. It was specific to language added very late in the game on this Binance deal, as kind of the heat was getting dialed up with the CZ rumors and the action taken against Binance International.
Yeah, honestly, whether, I did a poll today on Twitter, just a little one, and it's like, are you people out there? Are you for the exculpation clause being there? Are you against it? And most don't really know why you'd be for or against it, but I think a lot of people against it are saying, hey, no, if there's a way for somebody to be in trouble in this deal, I want all avenues open for somebody to retroactively or whenever, don't really care, for them to be in trouble. And I would think, in my perspective, from what I understand, is that this X clause is what I call it, because I hate saying that word. We don't use that word here in Oklahoma, so I don't want to say that word. But the X clause um, is there, not has nothing to do with any of the wrongdoing that most of us would be upset about. Pretty much all of us are upset about. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is the selling of assets, rebalancing of assets, realigning assets in order for everyone to get paid equally. And my thing is, if that doesn't happen, then those who held Bitcoin on Voyager get nothing, because that is what's gone. In order for everybody to be treated equally, those who didn't hold Bitcoin maybe take a hit for it. Maybe those who didn't hold a lent out asset like USDC or Bitcoin or whatever, maybe they take a hit for it. Yeah. And those who take Bitcoin they had nothing because it got lent out and they hardly had any left. So they came up with this plan that says, hey, we're going to balance it all out. That's what they all like. No one was really arguing that. It was just like, when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Who's going to do it? Then the government comes in and says, hold up a second. You guys sold these assets. You guys rebalance these assets without our permission, without our guidance, without our laws being in place. And whenever we make it in the future to be a problem for you doing what you did, we need the whole world to know that we have a problem with it now so that we can say later we had a problem with it. But I can also understand the government doing that, because if they're fighting for something to be in place for whether it's securities or who's selling this or who's monitoring this or who do they even report to, they're just operating freelance. I can see the point. But the main thing happened today was what I think what we really wanted, didn't know it could really happen, is set that aside. You all fight over that. We don't care if Kirkland can get sued later. We don't care if Voyager can get sued later. We don't care if the UCC can get sued later. We don't care if the judge can get sued later. I don't care if the government can sue later. I wish they could. But you guys fight over that. Don't use us as leverage. I made that comment and had some feedback on that, but I don't necessarily think Voyager's using us as leverage to make a deal. It's actually all the powers that be at the top are saying we need to fight over this issue, but it's at the creditor's expense, and we're just begging to not be in that fight because it has nothing to do with us. We're not going to be in trouble later. They are. Get us out of it, get us our money back, and let us move on to whatever solution that we vote for or opt in or something like that. How are you feeling about this process of this issue of the X clause and how we move forward?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I don't really care about the mechanics and the law, and the court approved the deal. They said assets can be balanced and redistributed to creditors. There are a couple things pending that aren't going to be included we should talk about, like the ongoing dispute with Alameda in regards to the $400 million loan they paid that they want back. It's money they borrowed from us in the first place. I don't think there's a lot of basis there, my opinion. And then there's some other things that they're squabbling about, the earnest money from that failed deal, the 75 million they loaned in capital. There's all these bargaining chips, so the lawyers are still going to have something to argue over and bill hours for, which I feel like we could have saved a whole month's worth if they had dropped the exculpation debate, or said, hey, let's move quicker and get people their assets quick. I feel like it feels still like we're getting milked a little.
Yeah,
In
that's
terms of
why I came up with that leverage thing. Is like Kirkland's over there. It seems like, or I don't think it's just them, but I'll just say the powers that be in this case, which is not us, have it attached in there because they want to have the conversation of, hey, we want to get these people the money and this has to be there. And they're like,
yeah.
no. And the government doesn't care about us getting our money back. So they have no obligation for that. They care about enforcing some law that doesn't exist yet. So take it to the side. I think this is a great thing. This seems like I don't agree
Yep.
with many things that we see, first reports, and definitely not tweets of the UCC. But this one is like, I don't know why it took so long, although I kind of guess, but I think this is great news.
Yeah, I think it's great news. I mean, they are going to keep some holdbacks. There's also the wind down entity, the opt-ins to the third party releases, and the actions that they're going to go and pursue to try to recover more money for the state, and eventually give that back to everybody, whether you opted in or not. It's all money that's going to come back to the state. It'll all eventually go back to creditors. That's, I think, why they had such a large wind down trust amount in the first place, is I think they believe that there's some things they can pursue to get some more value. Then, of course, you have the Three Arrows case, where there's nothing really. I haven't heard anything on any news there, if anything's been recovered, if we'll ever see anything from that, but wouldn't hold our breath on it. So there's a lot of things that still have to be ironed out. So in regards to people saying how much are we getting back, when we getting it back, these percentages have to be factored in, and it's kind of hard to really answer that in any specific way, um, because of all these holdbacks and items that are still up for dispute. But they're going to iron out the details, the UCC, Binance, in terms of instructions on how to get people their assets and what percentage will be in this first distribution. It will be in kind, because they support, I think, all the tokens that Voyager had. So if there's a few maybe that they don't, but it'd be pretty small, I believe. So there should be a pathway. There's already in the Voyager app, you can opt in to try to speed that process up. But most of the value will be returned pro rata at a lesser amount than you had on Voyager for most instances, and that will be coming back probably if we take the timeline that we were given before the disputes were entered. Binance was saying it was a 3 to 4 week timeline and to get first distributions out. So if we take that as if they figure this out in the next week or so, we could be looking by Memorial Day having first distributions made.
Yeah, that's the big thing here is we finally have actual hope of a green light where Binance didn't leave the deal yet, although they kept threatening to or rumoring to or whatever. But they want our social security numbers. So they're staying in the game. Doesn't cost them much. What do they care? But it looks like they stayed in the game and are working toward it. But once this gets approved and they figure out where people are at, then I think we're back on like that, like you said, close to a 1 month time frame toward the end of May. Maybe we actually have money to go buy a hot dog,
Yeah, a hot dog or maybe some fireworks for the 4th of July or picking up
Yeah,
some Bitcoin if it dips with the Bitcoin conference like it usually does.
for sure. And Dennis is asking, and Adam backed it up, is what's the percentage we're looking at? We don't really have all the numbers. No one's really been staying on top of. I mean, there's like a fee schedule and it's gross, but that's really just this super small fraction whenever it's divided amongst everybody. And so, I mean, with crypto going up and they were apparently rebalancing along the way. We don't really have
Hmm.
information of what those rebalanced values are at, or if there's still any remaining. They could have been doing it all along. Again, that's part of the government's problem is who's making these decisions, who's overseeing it, and all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of secret information, and they want to know what's going on because
Yep.
really, just my conspiracy side of my life, if you've got this backdoor few, whether it's Voyager, trustee, whatever, and they know what's going on, it opens the door for insider trading look backs, and it opens the door for because they got to sell off some assets to buy some others, and people can know that kind of stuff. So not that I really believe it would happen. There's too much eyes on those things and too many threats coming in for those people involved, but the government doesn't know that. They want to know what's going on, who has what money. But a little conspiracy side of me doesn't blame them for wanting to know
Yeah.
that stuff. So I'm all for it. Make sure they're doing it right way so we don't get screwed again or whatever. But now we're looking at how much percentage are we getting back? I still think 60 to 70%. That's my baseline. Even though it went up, could it theoretically be higher? Yeah, it could based on what happened. I just don't think we got all advantage of that. And I'm going to bank on 60 to 70%, 70 probably being the high side from my
Hmm.
emotional standpoint. But I just don't expect much different.
I agree. And with the holdbacks, the first distributions will probably be in the 40% range. Um, but we can look
Yeah,
on
'cause we're
Etherscan
speaking
right now to
total
see how
here.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we could see, again, there'll be multiple distributions probably over many years because of the three arrows thing. But the initial distribution should be the biggest one, and probably the majority of the assets returned. We can look on Etherscan and we can look at like the Explorer on the Terra network and kind of get an idea of how much Voyager has already rebalanced. That information's out there. It looks like I saw one transaction that had happened just 4 hours ago, but the majority of the rebalancing happened roughly 3 weeks ago. So a lot of the percentages and when they initially closed on that deal. It was done around the time the deal was approved by the district court.
Yeah, and once they rebalance, that allotment is set because it's dollar valued, and that part gets set. Only the remainder can fluctuate with the market. And that's one thing I want to bring back in, because questions are people out of sight, out of mind, which, like I am, people forget or whatever. But remember, when you all go to your app and you see what your claim value is, all you're thinking about is a dollar amount. Not if I have one Bitcoin, you're not getting 70% of one Bitcoin, not even close.
Right.
You're getting 70%, theoretically speaking, total and not upfront and all that. You're getting whatever percentage of the dollar value, which is higher price now. That's when they buy it. You're getting less Bitcoin than what you had by a big amount. It's the
Yep.
dollar amount that the courts, because that's the only thing they can go off of. Crypto's too new to have laws in place. Bankruptcy court says dollar value. So if you have a claim value of $10,000, then you're looking to get approximately 40 to 70% at different times, whatever, of that $10,000 of predominantly the asset that you held. That's it. There's no 70% of your Bitcoin. If you have one Bitcoin, you are not getting 0.7 Bitcoin. Not happening. And I think that's important to remember. What they do with taxes, I have no idea. Go find somebody that's not on Twitter and talk to them about taxes. But
Yeah.
don't really care. Probably all that stuff that's still on there is probably a loss for 95% of people anyway. But that's just something to remember, is it's dollar value, dollar value, dollar value. When you wake up on May 28th on Memorial Day, I don't know what day it is, on Memorial Day, and you have 0.2 Bitcoin when you thought you had 0.5, it's because of the dollar amount.
Yes. Yep. And then, of course, if you're not in the states that are agreed to getting distributions, then you have to wait even more, which is what that question is right there. If you're in Texas, you're like me. It's unlikely that the state of Texas and Binance will broker a deal in order to get in-kind distributions. So we're just going to have to wait for a check, probably in August timeframe, would be my guess.
So there's been some rumors going around recently, and I would say if you're on Twitter and the image of the account is an NFT, just take it with a grain of salt if they're sharing news about VGX. So there's some rumors going out there of like, oh, there's secret reports of Binance going to use VGX and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Maybe they can, maybe they will. It's not cut off. It's not determined. NDAs are still in place, so nobody's talking about it. But there's also, like what we just saw, a week or two ago, where a rumor comes out about FTX is going to open again. No, they're not. FTX won't be open here. They can't. But what happened? The FTT token spikes up 100% because a rumor comes out. So would somebody buy VGX and start spreading a rumor because liquidity is low to try to make that price spike up? No, that would never happen. Of
Not in
course, that's
crypto.
what's happening. So be careful with the rumors that you hear. And it's not going to, unless you're buying it off the market right now, which is crazy gamble anyway. But hey, I'm all for it, whatever. I'm not doing it. I haven't bought VGX since the Voyager app shut down. So if you're into that kind of stuff, then okay, great. But that's a very small amount of people and a very small amount of liquidity, and crazy things will happen. So be careful.
Well, and say that they do give you VGX in kind. It's a race to the bottom of who can sell it the quickest, right? And that price is going to go down real fast, right? So just keep that in mind. They'd be better off selling the token and distributing the cash value of the claim for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's my deal. I mean, you're going to have people with the bias who say, okay, oh, it could have this, it could have that, it could have it, because they don't want to let go of it, and I get it. But what's the problem with like selling all you have as quick as you can, and when it tanks, buying it back. If you actually want it, you can buy it back probably lower than what you could initially. And that's the thing that seems to remain unclear. I know we've heard some things in the past where they're going to try to protect that in some ways. I just don't buy it. I don't believe it. We're going to get screwed on it. That's my opinion. But if we got VGX, even my own opinion, my own action will be, if I can sell it for a certain flat rate, I'm out. I'm completely out until somebody shows me a real use for it, not a hypothetical use, not some other company with a plan for it, which I'm all for. I'm all for someone taking this token that I have an emotional attachment to or nostalgia with or whatever and using it. Great. It's in the right markets with Coinbase and Binance that most people can't get into. Great. Good for you. It's not guaranteed to stay there, but it can. But I'm not banking on it. I want out. And then I'll buy back for cheaper. And I probably will buy back for cheaper. Just why not? So
Yeah, I'm
not
I'm
hanging on
totally
to it.
fine being in Texas and just getting a check, quite honestly. Like whatever my claim value was, just give me my pro
Right.
rata
Yeah,
check.
especially on that
I'm
one.
good. I'll buy what I want with it.
Yep. And if they got to buy you Texas people out in other states or whatever, what's going to happen with those tokens?
Yeah.
I mean, don't those get
Well, that's
dumped
I think.
for the
Well, I
estates or
mean,
whatever?
yeah, they could as part of a rebalance. Yeah. Or
I mean, yeah.
they go over to Binance and Binance puts them on their balance sheet and then sends the cash.
Yeah, so like the
I don't,
rumors of Toro or whoever's doing it, where Binance buys VGX, like they've already said they don't want it. They've already said somebody else can buy it. They've already said no thanks, because they could have just had it for free. They could have just had it as part of the assets, and they said, "Nah, we don't need it. And if it helps the creditors or whatever or somebody else, y'all can buy it, and that's money in their pocket." But
right.
I don't see how, after all this, now they want it, but they could have just got it for free.
Yeah, it's
I
just
mean,
rumors.
they made the deal for the bankruptcy. Why would they have not just said, "Yeah, we're going to take over the VGX contract"? That would have been the easiest thing to do. But no, that wasn't the deal. Unless there's some backdoor conversation prohibiting that from happening. But I know nobody in the UCC is going to block that. So, no, not seeing that. VGX heroes will be back in action.
I mean,
Yeah, we're going to meet
are
at the
they
Wells
not?
Fargo building with you, Rob. We're going to get our
I
money
mean,
back and your money back.
heroes didn't go anywhere.
Let's see. What are the chances Alameda collects anything from the loan they paid back to Voyager? If they do, it'll probably be 10 years from now, and it'll probably be pennies on the dollar. And some
Yeah,
lawyers in the Bahamas will just be having fun on our dime.
that's so ridiculous. Like, I'm gonna rant for just a little bit on that one because,
There we
all
go.
right.
We
So
got a rant coming.
here's how it went down. Right? Okay. So
Let me leave that one up there.
BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager. These were the faucets. Right? People would bring cash into the crypto ecosystem through these yield platforms. They would work with the trading desks. Genesis through DCG, and they work with Alameda and Three Arrows and Galaxy Digital and all the people that Voyager loaned to, right? Those were the market makers. Those were the people that were taking that retail money, getting good pre-sales, dumping on retail, lending to one another. That contagion is what caused the collapse, all right? So in all that mess, Alameda took a loan from Voyager with our funds, and then in their attempts to acquire through FTX US, acquire Voyager so they could get their Serum and FTT token to stave off a collapse of FTX, they repaid that loan. They repaid the loan to get the deal done. They gave us our own funds back that they borrowed from us. Then they went bankrupt, and now they're asking to have the funds that they borrowed from us that they paid back back. It's because bankruptcy law has a 90-day clawback rule, which is just absurd in this case. Because if we were FINRA regulated or SIPC protected, the depositors would have been made whole a long time ago, and we wouldn't be going through this Chapter 11 mess to begin with. So, in my mind, good luck, Alameda, fighting Voyager for that clawback when we can prove that it was our funds that you borrowed in the first place, that you paid back voluntarily. And by the way, you've got, your CEO indicted for fraud. So I think that it'll be back and forth, lawyer fees, reduce the cost. Eventually they'll come to some settlement, would be my guess. But are they going to get it all back? In my opinion, the likelihood isn't very high. How's that?
Great. I love the rants. And fill in the blank with basically any asset that's on the app, but what will happen to my XRP that I had on my Voyager account? It depends on what they use to rebalance. So all that really matters is if you held XRP, you are going to get a dollar amount of XRP. If Binance holds the asset that you hold, like XRP, which I don't believe they allow trading on it I know they don't allow trading on it for the US, but they have the ability to hold it. So being able to sell that, probably not going to happen. So they're probably going to hold it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the name of the asset is, as long as Binance can hold it, you're going to get a like-kind distribution. If Binance US comes in and says, which they said a while back, like they're going to try to add a bunch of these tokens that they don't currently have to kind of ease the tension and the questions of those things. But I mean, you got to prove it to us. I mean, now this opens the door for them to take that seriously, which hopefully they were planning on, to where they can add the tokens that they need to. But whatever tokens you hold, you are going to get a set percentage of your claim value in dollars of those tokens. And if they can't get you those tokens, they'll give you the dollars, same amount. It's dollar driven. So that's that.
Yep.
And if y'all have any other questions, we probably don't know the answers, but you can throw them up anyway, because we're just here to give opinions.
That's what we got.
And one thing about Leg Flex is asking, where is Steve? There's differing opinions. People say I defend him or whatever, but let's pretend for a moment that the Voyager stock was at $10, which I can easily remember when it went down to $10 and it was a crazy deal. And then it spiked back up to like 20 real fast or something. And that's the thing, is like when it was at $10, Steve's net worth of just stock was about $70 million. When it was at 20, it was about $140 million because he held about 7 billion of the stock. And that's the thing, if he's going to court after all this is done and he's worth like 2 million, he is not escaping to some butterfly escape in Tahiti, living in condos or whatever. Like, people have seen him around these last few months at sporting events or whatever. He just has to be quiet. But I mean, I get people are mad. I mean, I'm mad at the situation too, but you don't have to make stuff up.
I mean, the math on it is now if he still had 7 million shares, which I don't even know if he does, but if he did, that's $189,000. If the UCC and others have already kind of looked into his finances and said there's not much there to recover. So, now, legalities and in terms of whether they were operating legally and breaking any laws and anything that they want to bring criminal charges for, that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, go get
them. In terms of the estate getting any money, they've already looked at Evan and Steve and said, it's not even worth the fees to go after them.
Yeah, and the shares that he had, I mean, it was reported that they weren't even all his. They were like basically a for benefit of account or whatever they would call it. I forget the name for it, but it's like this whole group of people around him that basically invested through him at the time that it was formed. I mean, it's just, people talk about the sale. Yeah. What was it? That was 2021. That's 2 years ago. This is Mavericks. This is pre Coinbase. This is pre million users. This is, yeah, it was at the high of the stock with the company handling for him, but
yeah.
whatever.
So I mean,
the thing is, people can still go after him. Go after him.
leave it to the lawyers. I'm not,
Yeah, I mean,
if there's something there
there's
and they want
nothing
to
that
go pursue
exists
it,
that prohibits people from, if there's wrongdoing, if there's fraud, if there's whatever, that's still up in the air to be like the exculpation clause. People are acting like, go get them, or they're stopping you from going to get, like, no, that has nothing to do with any wrongdoing of Voyager. That's only with the redistribution of assets and selling of assets. Another thing to clarify is, a friend of mine is like, liquidate, liquidate, liquidate. It's the same thing. You can't just liquidate or Chapter 7 this stuff. The government would have the exact same problem. It's the exact same issue of selling off those assets. And it wouldn't have happened. You could have filed it and you could have maybe snuck it through there, but as soon as you tried to get it done, it's not like the government's not aware of this deal. They're suing Voyager too. It wasn't going to happen. It's the selling and redistribution of assets without their permission. They would have stopped it.
Yep. And there's a fee examiner now, and how many of those retention employees and their bonus and salaries are still, how many of those people are even still around? Probably not a whole lot at this point, I would imagine. So like there's other types of things that, they could go recover. There's rumors about 30,000 or so accounts that withdrew fully before, the bankruptcy within 90 days that might have had some information that they might want to go pursue if there's sizable amounts there that they can go after. Like there's a whole lot of sponsorships or deals or clawbacks that they're going to be looking into. That's why they have a wind down entity war chest and why there was those opt-ins. So there could be more money coming back. It really just has to go through the different lawsuits.
Very good. Well, let's see. That's about where we're at for now. And now what's next is we're going to be waiting to see, when does this actually move forward in process of getting Binance on board? What assets are they going to have? Who's going to be able to keep their like-kind assets if they so choose? Will we be able to take a check? That's what I'm going to go for. All those things. We're going to get back into what we were watching before. We're going to get back into those kind of details of how does it affect me personally? How does it affect you personally? Now we get to get back into that. They've been spending a month or two of just arguing about stuff completely out of our control, of just a power struggle in the courts. Now we get to go back to the personal. The creditor gets to get back into the details. Now, do you sign up for Binance US? Do you not want to have that information? Does it cost you time to get your recovery back? Do you live in a state that you can't get anything? Now we're getting that back into our minds. Like I say, is out of sight, out of mind for most people. Now we get it back into thinking about that. And that's what we're staying on top of, because now it affects people like you and me and everybody watching. Now it's back on us because they got this clause out of the way. I think that's good.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm calling it a night. Got to go get some kids in bed. Thanks everybody for joining us. Now, my son just goes, "Ah, shoot." I can hear him through the door, but going to call it a night. Y'all have fun, sleep well, drink your water, and I will see you all next time. Obi, thanks for hopping on. Good to see you.
Sure. That was fun.
See you all next time.